Hey, I'm Charles D'Angelo. Tonight on Inner Fire, we're talking to some of my most successful clients, people just like you who've overcome the odds, they've lost hundreds of pounds, and they've kept it off. They're going to share their secrets they learned through my program working one-on-one with me so you can transform your life too. First up, we have John Moore, a man who was at death's door at 400 pounds. On 6 medications with 6 children, he didn't know which way to turn, but that all turned around the moment he called my office and started the program.
You had provided the tools and a direction for me to go, and that's what I needed to hear.
Next up, we have leading nephrologist, Dr. Marcos Rothstein, not only a leading doctor in the nation, but also a professor of medicine at Washington University who graduated my program and who will give you the tips you need to reverse the very issues that you might be facing because of neglect of your habits.
We're in the midst of a national epidemic, and I think it's nothing short of that.
Finally, we're going to talk about what you need to do to take charge of your habits like Dr. Rothstein and John have. Tune in and get ready to ignite your inner fire. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're tuning in. I'm Charles D'Angelo, and I believe that it's not an accident that you're here tonight watching my show. Tonight, I'm going to help you start to take charge of your life. What would you think if I said that you're going to learn the very exact strategy, a plan that's helped thousands of people to lose hundreds of pounds each? Some people in less than a year. A strategy that's going to allow you totally to overcome your fears, those self-imposed mental limits, and any history, anything that's happened to you that you've allowed to hold you back from your God-given destiny of health and success. This strategy has enabled my clients' doctors to be able to take them off of medications for diabetes, for high blood pressure, for abnormal lipid levels, for sleep apnea, and dozens more. What would you think if you heard people say that after a lifetime of failed attempts, that they finally learned the secret to eliminating the lifelong struggles of indulging in the very unhealthy foods that they found themselves doing day after day, week after week, not only losing the weight, but keeping it off for good? Tonight, you're going to meet a person who's lost almost 205 pounds in about a year. He was once so addicted to sugar that he slept with candy in his nightstand. Now, after working with me, he hasn't touched it ever since. These are people that were actually considering ending their lives, but through this program you're going to learn about tonight, it awakened their spirit, and really they began to design their future instead of just going through life hoping things will work out. Can you relate? Does this seem to ring a bell with you? What's their secret, you ask? It's not a new diet. It's not a new pill. It's not a new drug, an herb, a DVD, or some book or a piece of equipment. In fact, it's something that you were born with. It's your mind. It starts all by setting goals, by asking yourself who you really need to become to have the things that you've often wished for. Learning to give positive meaning to the very things, the experiences that might have limited you in the past, because ultimately, it's those meanings that determine the action you're going to take, the habits that you form, and ultimately, the character that you develop and the person you become, the destiny you shape. Tonight, I'm challenging you, you, to own yourself. Take charge of your life by stepping into and seeking out new adventure by being curious instead of being fearful and seeking security. Listen to that little inner voice that made you turn on this station in the first place, the thing that's telling you that a brighter future lies ahead of the things behind you. Now, if you're like the former me, I used to weigh 400 pounds. You might say to yourself, how's this young, fit guy going to do anything to help me? I mean, it's late at night, I'm up, I have all sorts of problems this guy has not a clue about. Listen, I've spent the last decade now focusing and studying the absolute best of what works when it comes to really reclaiming your health from your habits and getting extremely fit, becoming independent of the very things that once controlled your life up until now. I've committed my life entirely to empowering people with the very strategy that you're going to learn from the people that you're watching tonight so they could take control of their mindset and track a path toward the future that really excites them. But I wasn't always this way. I mean, I once weighed 360 pounds. You have to understand, I came from a family of modest means. My father's side all struggled with obesity. In fact, I lost my father at 54 to a massive heart attack after years of neglect. My mother's side of the family struggled with substance abuse to alcohol and other related substances, to say it lightly. So if you were to look at my history, you certainly wouldn't believe that I would go on to lose 160 pounds, totally take charge of my life, and live a life that very, very, very many people admire and want to be able to model. I don't say that to impress you. I say that to impress upon you. If I can do it, so can you. So stay tuned for John, one of my clients, the guy that lost 200 pounds, who took charge of his health with my help, and will share with you the very things you can do too to start to change your future. So if you're ready to really reclaim your health from your habits, pick up a copy of my book, Think and Grow Thin. It's available at my website, charlesdeangelo.com, or call my office for a free consultation at 314-495-3228. Welcome back. My next guest is Mr. John Moore. John lost over 200 pounds in just about 15 months. He was a size 54 at the start when he came to see me, and now he's a size 34. He was on about 5 different medications, isn't that right?
Yep.
Right, 5. He was on a CPAP machine. For those that aren't familiar, that's for sleep apnea, where your breathing is obstructed because of your weight. He was able to eliminate that totally, and here he sits, feeling better than ever, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
All right, so tell everybody at home, really, what for you made the decision easy, where you decided, okay, I'm not going to live like this anymore?
I had gone to the doctor right before I had started with you, weighing the heaviest I've ever weighed in my life.
Which was?
393 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And blood pressure through the roof, high cholesterol, anxiety, depression. He basically told me I was on track to have a heart attack.
Which would mean what?
Mean death, I mean.
So you really
Right.
were associated to the reality that you could very well not live to see your kids graduate.
Exactly.
Those that hadn't already. Not
Exactly.
live to see the grandkids grow up.
Exactly.
I see you get a little emotional
I
about
do,
that.
yeah. I was crying in your office that day. You had provided the tools and a direction for me to go, and that's what I needed to hear, so that's what I did.
So having a plan, having a strategy, having the right foods in place. So you weren't hungry?
No.
Be really, really, really frank here. Were you hungry?
Honestly, no. I bet I eat more food now than I did when I was
Seriously?
heavy. Seriously.
At 400 pounds, you think
Absolutely.
now?
I eat 6 times a day now. I'll bet when I was heavy, there was times I ate once a day.
So the big recommendation that you would give to people at home that are struggling with these habits, would you say it's fair to think of this program as something that's not meant to break your habits, but rather to replace them with more effective ones?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. And when I started with you, the results were immediate, which was big for me.
So it fed that success.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So instead of taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, we just kept taking
Right.
steps forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're at home and you're feeling like you're on your last leg, maybe you weigh almost 400 pounds like John did, you too can take charge of your life if you're willing to not break habits, but rather replace them with more effective ones. What do I mean? I mean, ask yourself why you're overeating. Is it to fill that emotional void? And if so, if you're willing to embrace a new philosophy, eat more often, the right foods, and do a little exercise, you can achieve everything you've ever dreamed of. Stay tuned for more. So if you're ready to really reclaim your health from your habits, pick up a copy of my book, Think and Grow Thin. It's available at my website, charlesdeangelo.com, or call my office for a free consultation at 314-495-3228. In our Checkup with the Doc segment, we're talking about type 2 diabetes. This terrible disease took the life of my father and my grandparents. It's a silent killer, and in fact, you might have it and not even know it. The CDC recently published a report saying that 1 in 4 Americans have diabetes and are completely unaware. 29 million people in the U.S. now have diabetes. It's up from the previous estimate of 26 million in 2010. According to that same report, another 86 million adults, more than 1 in 3, have prediabetes, or what some doctors call borderline diabetes. It's where your blood sugar levels are higher than they should be, but they're not high enough to be classified as full-fledged type 2 diabetes. To help us with this problem that I know far too well, I have my client, my friend, my colleague, Dr. Marcos Rothstein, who is a Washington University professor of medicine and a leading nephrologist in our country on these types of issues. Dr. Rothstein, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me here,
My
Charles.
pleasure, my pleasure. So talk to me tonight about just how dire this situation is in our country.
Well, we're in the midst of a national epidemic, and I think it's nothing short of that. When we look at the numbers for the adult population in the last 20 years, we had doubled the numbers of obesity, from 15% of adults to 35%.
Wow.
It had quadrupled in teenagers.
So in kids you're talking about?
In kids.
You're talking about kids that from the ages of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 18, 20?
As we define obesity by body mass index, by girdle, numbers have doubled in small children and quadrupled in teenagers.
And you told me when you came here from Venezuela, which is where you're from, right?
Correct.
That you would see, what was it, what was that statistic?
I think I came here for training at Washington University,
Sure.
and I distinctively remember that at the time was a diagnosis of 1 per year of a teenager with type 2 or adult onset diabetes.
And when was that,
related
about
to
1970?
1980.
1980, okay.
1980. Now there may be 3 to 4 new patients being diagnosed with that kind of adult onset diabetes
Type 2
or type 2
diabetes.
diabetes every week.
Oh my gosh. Now this is something that my family was not fortunate enough to have a lot of education. So when my father and my grandparents were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, I remember they thought it was an illness like something you contract from a doorknob. They didn't know that it was something caused by their lifestyle. So can you speak to that? For people that think by being diagnosed that it's an illness they have to live with the rest of their life, is it true or isn't it? Clarify for everyone watching. Is it true that you can truly reverse type 2 diabetes if you're willing to change your habits with regard to that way you eat, the food you eat, and the exercise you do?
I would say that doesn't apply universally for
Sure, of course,
every
there's no
patient.
absolute.
There are patients that their pancreas basically is not able to produce enough insulin. But I would say it's a huge segment of the population in which they become insulin resistant. The
Absolutely.
pancreas is making an extra output of insulin, is putting more extra amounts of insulin for the tissues, and is in a state of insulin resistance where you're not able to have that control the
Because
passage.
there's been so much in the body. The body's almost become desensitized to it.
Yes, because adipose or fat tissue become resistant to insulin.
So for viewers at home that don't understand what insulin does, it goes through the blood, right? And it takes out sugar. Isn't that what it does?
Yeah, it transfers the sugar that is in your bloodstream inside the cells where it's needed as
To give energy, right?
Correct.
Okay. So when a person becomes overweight, that fat almost acts as a barrier to the body being able to effectively do this transportation process.
I think that's a perfectly good mental image to have
Good,
it
right?
as a barrier.
And what the damage that happens for people is when that sugar doesn't come out, right? When there's not enough insulin or there's too much sugar remaining, if you're a type 2 diabetic, what happens is that sugar goes through your veins, your arteries, right, Doc? And acts like shards of glass, or in this case, I like to use razor blades, okay? Razor blades doing all sorts of arterial damage. And Dr. Rothstein so kindly brought a model tonight that we're going to talk about to really demonstrate clearly the effects that excess sugar is having on your system. So Doc, let's talk about this. As we look at this model here, we see up here the brain. Talk to me about what is this little area that seems to have a lot of extra blood present?
Well, I think, I don't know if you're talking to somebody that may have had a stroke.
Okay. So diabetics can have strokes.
Absolutely. So this is a darkened area where tissue became dead, and now you have a scar area where part of your brain is gone.
And it will not really repair.
Will never come back. So in this model, you see different organs that have suffered irreversible target organ damage.
Irreversible being the key, meaning that if you let this go too long, if you think that by taking metformin or by taking injectable exogenous insulin, giving yourself shots or having a pump, you're not really fixing the issue, are you?
Absolutely not, because the common mistake in the lay community is thinking that you become diabetic, you get insulin, and you solve the problem.
Oh, and I have a pill or something to take.
Absolutely. And that's only one of many, many manifestations of diabetes, and the buzzword in the medical community, which is the metabolic syndrome. And
Right.
metabolic syndrome is when you put together the insulin resistance and the diabetes, the excessive weight gain, the hypertension, the sleep apnea, the clotting disorders, all of those things that shorten your lives. And what happens is when you have this new defined syndrome, this metabolic syndrome, you have an overriding impulse going through your body. You have your sympathetic or stress hormone
always
system.
Stressed out. Your body's always stressed.
Absolutely. And you send in from your brain signals to your heart to beat harder.
How about your kidney? Look at your kidney there. It's all shriveled up.
Absolutely. What happens to the kidney gets exposed to excessive amount of flows and pressures, and that basically wears out the vessels.
So your blood pressure is impacted?
Absolutely.
Right?
As you see here, you have a black toe because you get no circulation. You get atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries.
Right here. Yeah, we see that
damage everywhere. This plaque is a direct consequence not just of the excessive weight gain, but the stress hormones that are released from excessive body storage of fat.
Wow. So what you're saying to me, what I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a doctor, but you're a good friend, that if a person's willing to change their habits and start to feed themselves in such a way that they're eating a low glycemic diet, meaning that they're not eating carbohydrates that are going to spike their blood sugar, but they eat a lot of good complex carbs. They couple that with a good amount of lean protein sources and healthy fats, that by making those changes and doing it consistently and being aerobically active, doing some cardiovascular exercise, a lot of this damage can be prevented.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Absolutely. I'm very fond of telling my patients, I see a lot of people with complicated high blood pressure, hypertension, that even a very mild weight loss, 15 pounds, is enough to cure hypertension in a great degree.
Cure hypertension, meaning that you can actually take them off of their medications.
Absolutely.
So
we
when you
see it every time.
So when you see my patients, my clients that have lost 50, 100, 200 plus pounds, and they say they've been taken off all their medications, that's because literally your body is designed to operate itself. Isn't that true?
That is correct. That is correct.
If you don't interfere by putting a lot of these highly processed, convenient, easy, tasty, but chemical-laden, poor quality foods in your system, your body can do a lot to repair itself.
Well, if you go back to my previous explanation about a revved up sympathetic system,
overstress,
all of that comes down. Okay, your blood pressure is down, your blood vessels, inflammation is way down, and that's another very key buzzword nowadays.
Inflammation.
Inflammation is what damages the lining of blood vessels, and that is gone when you lose weight, much of that. I think all the stress caused by these stress hormones is gone. Your kidney function improves, your heart function improves. Most important, your liver, which is a huge metabolic machine in your body, works much better once you lose weight.
So essentially, we're looking here, we see, not only do we see the organ damage, but talk about the nerve damage. What is diabetic neuropathy for a person that's not into the medical side of things? Explain what that really means. When a person says, I have diabetic neuropathy.
So to be simplistic, the nerves are the wires that send the sensory for pain and send the signal that something is bothering you, is that your sensory system. And the difference with a copper wire is that a nerve is a living thing.
It's living.
It's living and requires feeding.
Absolutely.
Requires a blood supply. And so if a nerve is a very fine, many millimeters,
very tiny,
smaller than a hair.
Wow.
The blood vessel that feeds the nerve is even smaller.
It's microscopic.
Microscopic, and damage to those blood vessels damages irreversibly the nerves.
Because I remember my dad couldn't feel his fingers.
Because he lost the sensory. He lost the nerves that were fed by those blood vessels.
And so if you're sitting at home and you suffer from type 2 diabetes, what the doctor and I are saying is this. If you're really ready to take some steps, which we're going to come and talk about here in a few minutes when we come back, you can totally reverse type 2 diabetes in most cases. Now, there's no universal, as the doctor said, but there stands a good chance that even if you're to the place where you're always going to need a little medicine, you could probably greatly reduce it. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. I see it on a weekly basis.
So we'll come right back and we'll actually tell you what those things are that you need to start doing today to take charge of type 2 diabetes. So if you're ready to really reclaim your health from your habits, pick up a copy of my book, Think and Grow Thin. It's available at my website, charlesdangelo.com, or call my office for a free consultation at 314-495-3228. Pretty gross, isn't it? 5 pounds of fat. To think I used to weigh 360 pounds carrying this amount all around my abdomen and everywhere else. So we're getting back to talk with the doctor about how you can take charge of type 2 diabetes. So let's hit it, Doc. Number one, start to eat a protein, making sure it's coupled with a low glycemic carb or fat every 3 hours, starting with breakfast. Don't you think that's a great tip, Doc?
It's a fabulous tip, and is based on a really, really very important science of how hunger comes back to you.
Excellent. Second, make sure that you have healthy, high-protein snacks in between the larger meals to make sure that you don't allow yourself to become vulnerable to hunger.
Same idea.
Okay. Making exercise is very important. We don't want to forget this is like a three-legged stool, remember, so we have the food, but you also want to be very active. How much does activity help, Doc, with really taking charge of diabetes?
The formula is very easy. You put in less calories and you burn more calories and you get there.
Excellent, excellent. Thirdly, making sure that you use cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil to cook with, because it's anti-inflammatory. It's something that really helps calm down a lot of that inflammation, rather than use those unhealthy fats.
That bears more truth than you can tell.
Really?
As a matter of fact, the Mediterranean diet has been validated now many, many times as the healthiest cardiovascular possible diet, and the bulwark of it is the olive oil.
So having a lot of olive oil, lean proteins like fish.
Absolutely.
Okay. Lastly, drink only zero-calorie drinks. Now, Doc, how much do you think soda is responsible for this whole epidemic?
Huge. I think it is, I would say, the lion's share of it, empty calories that come in soft drinks.
Excellent. One more tip, make sure that you eliminate whites from your food's vocabulary, meaning whites like sugar, white flour, all these cheap, highly processed foods, which primarily are made of just that, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. All carbohydrates, such as pasta, bread, cookies, is what we define as white foods.
And they all break down into
sugar.
You've got it. So if you're sitting at home and you think that by having those things that say they're reduced in sugar, keep in mind that if one of the ingredients is white flour, or if it's high in carbs, those carbs do break down into the very thing that's causing this problem.
I am very fond of saying that every single starch is a wall made out of little bricks, and each brick is sugar.
Excellent. So make sure that you're staying very, very much aware of the foods you're putting in your body, because without paying attention to that, neglecting that, and you're asking for a catastrophe from a health perspective. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with another success story. So if you're ready to really reclaim your health from your habits, pick up a copy of my book, Think and Grow Thin. It's available at my website, charlesdangelo.com, or call my office for a free consultation at 314-495-3228. You don't have to wait for the new year to set a resolution to change your life. I have with me tonight one of my clients, Cindy Scado, who's lost 75 pounds since the start of the year. Now is the time to really design the next 3, 5, 12 months of your life. And we're going to talk about how Cindy has done. So Cindy, 75 pounds. Talk to me about what made you make the decision that you had to change your life.
I just wasn't happy with myself. I didn't like myself, and it took, my husband had a friend of his that came to you.
How much did that friend lose?
Over 100 pounds.
Excellent.
And they told me about you in December, but it took to January till I was kind of like, yeah, I'll go, I'll check him out, you know, we'll see how it goes, you know.
How easy was it losing the 75 pounds?
It was easy. I mean, because I got to eat. It wasn't like I had to do, you know, so many days this, so many days that. I ate real food. I exercised.
Stuff you got from the grocery store?
Yes, stuff you get from the grocery store, turkey, chicken.
Did you have to hire some special trainer or get some special DVD or magic piece of equipment?
No, I just needed my treadmill.
That was it, so just walking, right?
Yes,
so a very
just
practical approach. So really the difference, would you say, was in your relationship with food and exercise?
Oh, yes.
Is that what changed?
Yes, yes. I mean, I exercise every day because my family owns a ranch, so I work out every day there, but I wasn't eating the right kinds of foods. I mean, I was eating the turkey and chicken, but it was prepared differently. Right now, it's prepared correctly, grilled, not fried. I cut out all the fried foods. I'm eating grilled food now. I'm eating more vegetables than I used to eat. And I mean, before it was easier just to, I'll just run to McDonald's and grab something.
Something convenient and had a terrible consequence.
Yes. Now I make the time to prepare my food. And it's not that hard to prepare. It's easy to prepare.
So these small changes that you've made have had a tremendous impact. So how much better is life now, having lost the 75 pounds?
It's 100% better. It's everything has gotten so much easier. I play with my energy level is up where
you barrel race?
I barrel race, so I've improved my time. Like last year, I was, right there. This year, I'm right there winning it. And I told the younger girls, watch out, because I was coming at them this year, and they found out I have. And I mean, it's just, everything has been great. I absolutely love myself now.
And your husband owning an Italian restaurant, that hasn't even been an issue.
No, it hasn't. It has not been an issue at all. He's very supportive and loving. He prepares grilled chickens for me.
Fantastic.
And brings them home. And then when it's my refuel night and it's steak, he brings a steak home, or we'll go out to dinner and have steak. So he's been very supportive, even on those Sunday dinners when they have, big meals and everything.
Excellent. So if you're willing to take charge of your life, make some subtle changes, those small changes have a huge impact. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. So if you're ready to really reclaim your health and your habits, pick up a copy of my book, Think and Grow Thin. It's available at my website, charlesdangelo.com, or call my office for a free consultation at 314-495-3228. Thanks for tuning in. I want you to know that you too can be a success like all of my clients. As you see, there's really never a perfect time for change. Change and discipline can always feel difficult, but the most extreme pain of all is regret. Think about what you're missing out on, the level of joy that you'll experience when you really commit at the level you're capable. So I challenge you tonight to step up, set a new standard for yourself, and ignite your inner fire. I'm Charles D'Angelo, and thanks again. God bless, and have a great day.